I am Basil Qasim. This is NBC and these are the headlines. President Abbas arrives in New York for the 72nd General Assembly session. Al-Ahmad welcomes Hamas's decision to dissolve Gaza Administrative Committee. And President Trump to US Jewish leaders says, "I love Israel and peace could actually happen." However, we start with the Sabra and Shatila massacre that took place in 1982, whose 35th anniversary coincides on Saturday, was a criminal act engineered by then Israeli General Ariel Sharon, who escaped justice, charged Saeb Ariqat, Secretary General of the Executive Committee of the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO. The massacre took place after the Israeli invasion of Lebanon, when Christian Phalangist militias entered the Beirut camp under Israeli military watch to wreak retribution for the alleged assassination of the leader Bashir Gemayel.
The memory of the brutal Sabra and Shatila massacre still resonates in our minds and hearts. It's embedded in every Palestinian memory and soul, said Ariqat in a statement. 35 years ago, the vicinity of the two refugee camps in Beirut was filled with the scent of death and bodies of thousands of butchered and injured Palestinian children, women, and men. A criminal act engineered by Ariel Sharon, Israel's military general at the time, who facilitated the barbaric butchering of defenseless refugees by Phalangist forces under his watch. Today is a reminder to the world of a criminal who escaped justice and got away with it. Ariqat stressed that Sabra and Shatila massacre will not be wiped from our conscience. It's a reminder of more than 400 Palestinian villages destroyed by Zionist paramilitaries and of the Palestinian exodus who were uprooted and forced out of their homes. It is also a reminder of the absence of justice and accountability. Sharon and Israeli leaders who masterminded this massacre should have been tried in international courts. Instead, Sharon was awarded to become Israel's 10th prime minister. The PLO official called on the international community to restore justice, accountability, and to end the culture of impunity granted to Israel, stressing that resolving the Palestinian refugee issue should only be through the implementation of the international law and United Nations Resolution 194. The Lebanese Phalangist militias raided the two refugee camps soon after Sharon's army occupied West Beirut and after the departure of the PLA forces from London in a deal brokered by the United States to end Beirut's 80-day Israeli siege. Over 3 days and nights, the Phalangist forces were allowed free hand in the camps as the Israeli armies closed its eyes to the massacre and even lit the skies for the militias who went on the killing rampage in the two Palestinian camps. The massacre claimed the lives of at least 3,000 Palestinian civilians. Ayman Maani, NBC.
President Mahmoud Abbas on Sunday arrived in New York to take part in the proceedings of the 72nd session of the United Nations General Assembly. Mr. Abbas is expected to deliver a speech on Wednesday and meet US President Donald Trump and a number of world leaders and heads of delegations joining the UNG session.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas met on Tuesday with Secretary General of the United Nations Antonio Guterres on the sideline of the 72nd UN General Assembly meeting in New York. Abbas and Guterres reportedly discussed the latest developments in the political process and intra-Palestinian reconciliation efforts, which comes after the Hamas movement called the Palestinian Authority to assume its responsibility in Gaza Strip and cancel recent punitive measures imposed on the Palestinians there, now that Hamas has disbanded its administrative committee that runs the coastal enclave. Abbas also emphasized the need for the UN to uphold its rule and enforce UN resolutions on the Palestinian question, according to the PA-owned Wafa news agency. Guterres paid a visit to Gaza Strip last month when he demanded that Israel's decade-long blockade on the territory be lifted, describing life in the besieged territory as one of the most dramatic humanitarian crises he had ever seen. During Abbas' stay in New York, the Palestinian president also reportedly met with the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Federica Mogherini, and discussed the Palestinian issue and Israel's illegal settlement activities in the occupied Palestinian territory. He also met Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, King Abdullah of Jordan, Prime Minister of Belgium Charles Michel, President of Brazil Michel Temer, and Lebanese President Michel Aoun, among others. Abbas is expected to meet US President Donald Trump Wednesday afternoon and address the UN at 7 p.m. Jerusalem time. During the meeting with Trump and the following speech, Abbas is reportedly expected to recommit himself to a peaceful settlement with Israel. A translation of the interview by Wafa said the meeting will emphasize the Palestinian commitment to the political statement on the basis of the UN resolutions and the policies of the successive US administrations on the Palestinian issue, particularly ending the Israeli occupation since 1967, including in East Jerusalem. Zumlot said the Palestinian president in his address, the General Assembly, will also stress that any political settlement should start with ending the Israeli occupation, establishing a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, treating the occupied West Bank and Gaza as one unit, a just settlement to the refugee issue, and U.S. commitment to peace.
Member of Fatah Central Committee Azzam Al-Ahmad welcomed on Sunday Hamas movement's decision to dissolve an administrative committee it has formed to run the affairs of the Gaza Strip. Al-Ahmad also revealed that the Fatah delegation met with the Hamas leadership, expressing appreciation for Hamas' decision to dissolve the administrative committee it had formed. He also hailed Hamas's call for the unity government to resume its normal work in Gaza, as well as its approval to hold presidential and legislative elections. In the same vein, Presidential Advisor for International Affairs Nabil Shaath said on Monday that Egypt played a vital role in getting Hamas to agree to dissolve its Gaza Administrative Committee and agree on reconciliation.
Hamas, the de facto ruling party of the Gaza Strip, has pledged to dissolve its administrative committee that runs the besieged coastal enclave and expressed readiness to hold general elections in a bid for reconciliation with Fatah-led a Palestinian Authority. A statement from Hamas said, according to Ma'an news agency, that the decision came in response to recent diplomatic efforts by Egypt to reconcile the rival factions, while PA President Mahmoud Abbas has been calling on Hamas to end the administrative committee, relinquish control of the small territory to the PA, and hold presidential and legislative elections. Hamas and the PA have been embroiled in a conflict since 2006, when Hamas won Palestinian legislative elections and a bloody conflict between the two groups broke out. Despite numerous attempts at reconciling the groups, Palestinian leadership has repeatedly failed to follow through on promises of reconciliation and holding of a long overdue elections, as both movements have frequently blamed each other for numerous political failures. The Hamas movement said Sunday that it has dissolved its administrative committee that formed earlier this year to the outrage of the PA, agrees to hold general elections for the first time since 2006, enter talks with Fatah, and allow national reconciliation government to operate in Gaza. Hamas signed the reconciliation agreement with the PLO in April 2014, which was to pave the way for a general election by the end of 2014. However, a devastating 50-day Israeli attack on Gaza that year, as well as a dispute over payments of the salaries of tens of thousands of Hamas security forces, first blocked progress on the deal towards reconciliation. The Palestinian political crisis has since only continued to worsen, and Hamas said it formed the committee after the consensus government failed to take responsibility for Gaza's administration. The PA alleges that Hamas is attempting to form a shadow government to run Gaza independent of the West Bank. Ayman Maani, NBC.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates on Thursday called for a responsible international position against Israel's use of Palestinian lands to achieve political gains and undermining the peace process. The ministry said in a press release that Israel uses Palestinians' land to auction the public competition between the right-wing members who seek to attract more settlers and extremists by offering free donations at the expense of Palestinians. It referred to the recent racial statements that deny Palestinians their rights by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Prisoners' Affairs attorney Mohammed Mahmoud on Monday submitted a petition to the Israeli High Court on behalf of families of 3 Palestinians killed by Israeli forces to have their corpses released. Families of Osama Atta, Adil Ankush and Bara Saleh want the corpses of their sons held by Israel since June to be released so that they can give them proper burial. The 3 Palestinians from the Ramallah area village of Deir Abu Mish'al were killed by Israeli police in East Jerusalem following a stabbing attack that left 1 police officer dead. Their corpses have been held since then in Israeli morgues as a punishment to the families. Mahmoud said the court has not yet set a date to look into the petition. Minister of Health Jawad Awad announced on Monday that the ministry has dispatched medical and emergency team to the Caribbean islands that were recently hard hit by Hurricane Irma to help in the relief and rescue efforts. He said the team, which left to the Caribbean on Sunday evening, will include experts in rescue operations as well as ambulance and emergency staff and specialized physicians and surgeons, particularly in pediatrics, chest and vascular surgery and orthopedics. US President Donald Trump on Friday expressed his deep love for Israel during a call to American Jewish leaders on the occasion of the Jewish New Year, which coincides on Thursday, announcing that peace between Palestinians and Israelis could actually happen. The United States will always support Israel, he said, adding that I can tell you on a personal basis that, and I just left Israel recently, I love Israel. For this reason, said Trump, his administration has successfully pressured the United Nations to withdraw the unfair and biased report against Israel, he says. He was referring to the UN Human Rights Council report that exposed Israel's violations against the Palestinian people in the territories it has occupied since 1967. Israeli bulldozers on Monday demolished a Palestinian residential building in the village of Zaim to the southeast of Jerusalem. The building, which belongs to Mohammed al-Sayri, was demolished under the pretext it was built without a permit. Israeli occupation forces cordoned off the area where the building was located as bulldozers proceeded to demolish it. Zaim is a village categorized as Area B, which is under Palestinian civil administration. Building permits in Area B are usually issued by local municipal councils and not by the Israeli military. Israeli occupation forces on Saturday ordered a halt to work on opening an agricultural road in the village of Al-Khadr, south of the city of Bethlehem, in the occupied West Bank, according to Ahmad Saleh, a local activist. He said that Israeli forces stopped work on the road that is supposed to serve several farmers in the area and which was funded by the Basque Agency for Development Cooperation through Cooperation for Peace and Progress (CPP). The soldiers informed the workers from Palestinian agricultural relief committees that they would confiscate their vehicles and tools if they continued to work on the road. Also on the ground, a number of Palestinians suffocated on Friday after inhaling tear gas fired at them by Israeli forces during clashes that broke out in Hebron's town of Beit Ummar to the north, said a local activist. Muhammad Awad, the anti-settlement activist, said Israeli occupation forces stormed the town, raided and searched a number of Palestinian residents' homes and took over the rooftop of one of the homes and turned it into a military outpost, spurring clashes with provoked residents. Forces used tear gas canisters against the residents, causing several suffocation cases among them. They were all treated at the scene. Now we move to Amjad al-Isa.
Thank you, Basil. On Sunday, September the 17th, Professor An-Najah, acting president of An-Najah, hosted Mr. Hood, lecturer and senior project manager at Masjid School of Management. The meeting aimed to discuss possible means of mutual cooperation between An-Najah and Masjid University in the realms of projects and developments as an instrument for employability, as well as establishing ways to consolidate and develop academic relations between the two parties. At the beginning of the meeting, Professor An-Najah briefed Mr. Mood on An-Najah's development, its role and standing in the service of the Palestinian society, and the political and financial challenges it always encounters. Professor An-Najah mentioned that An-Najah adopts technology to enhance the quality of higher education in various fields and achieve the best educational outcomes. The work camp of An-Najah served as a great introduction to Palestine's history by Annie Samantha. She stated that she developed an interest in Palestine from following media sources like Democracy Now! And Al Jazeera and watching lectures by thinkers like Noam Chomsky, Edward Said, and David Graeber. Having been trained in anthropology, which holds field work as its defining methodology, she felt that she needed to immerse herself into Palestinian context in order to better understand it. Overall, the Zajil project exceeded her expectations. Zajil and local volunteers were extremely flexible in accommodating her interests and requests. The Public Relations Department succeeded in educating international volunteers about the impact of the occupation, and she was sure that many of them will continue to engage with the advocate for Palestine. Then she thanked the An-Najah for these extremely enriching 2 weeks and offered to start mutual cooperation with the Public Relations Department remotely from Canada. Dr. Sana Sarghali, staff member and the Faculty of Law at An-Najah, has recently conducted a 10-week scholarship program at Richardson Institute of Lancaster University. The scholarship was part of the State of Exception in the Middle East project adopted by the Institute. Dr. Sarghali conducted a research paper in cooperation with Dr. Simon Mabon, director of the Richardson Institute, titled State of Exception, A Perfect Marriage. The study shed light on the Palestinian situation as part of the state of exception based on the Agamemnon theory. Dr. Sarghali also gave intensive seminars and workshops to political science doctoral students on constitutions after the Arab Spring. She also discussed her upcoming book with the students, which will be published by Hart Publication in the UK. A delegation from Scottish University of Dundee visited An-Najah National University on Tuesday, September 12th. The delegation was accompanied by Sir Vincent Veen, the former British Consul General of Jerusalem. The delegation was received by Dr. Maher An-Najah, acting president of the university, Dr. Khayriya Rassas, Vice President for International Development and External Affairs Office, Dr. Muhammad Al-Amli, Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Muayyad Hattab, Dean of the Faculty of Law, and Mr. Khalid Muflih, Acting Director of the Public Relations at the university. The meeting aimed to discuss the prospects of active cooperation between An-Najah and Dundee University in the realms of teaching and learning, as well as establishing ways to consolidate and develop academic relations between the two parties. On Sunday, September 10th, the top-ranked debaters from the National Open Debate Tournament at Al-Quds Bard College met with Professor Maher An-Najah, acting president of An-Najah. The students discussed their experiences in the debate training program at An-Najah, which is run through the American Corner Nablus. They also discussed the program training and curriculum, as well as some of the national tournaments completed and upcoming national and international activities the team will participate in. Student Ahmed Ghazi and Hassan Salhi from An-Najah were ranked first place, followed by second and third, fourth places, also going to An-Najah team. The American Corner Nablus is responsible for An-Najah's English debate team and has and will continue to train students and recent graduates for national, regional, and international debate tournaments. And back to you, Basil.
Thank you, Amjad, and the floor is yours, Lena.
Thank you, Basil. Hurricane Maria continued on its track toward the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico last Tuesday morning, hours after leaving behind a scene of devastation in Dominica, where it ripped off rooftops on the small Caribbean island overnight. The Category 5 storm is expected to continue fluctuating in strength as it moves over the northeast Caribbean Sea, and the eye wall is forecast to pass near or over the island sometime Wednesday, according to the National Hurricane Center. For the first time ever, scientists have stored light-based information as sound waves on a computer chip, something the researchers compare to capturing lightning as thunder. While that may sound a little strange, this conversation is critical if we ever want to shift from our current inefficient electronic computers to light-based computers that move data at the speed of light. About 36 million years ago, an asteroid slammed into Canada and created a fake diamond, which over the millennia degraded and transformed into a shiny black rock. Now, geologists have used that gem to confirm a new temperature record for the Earth's surface, which is 2,370 degrees Celsius. This is not exactly the geologist's standard test bot. It's incredibly accurate. We know that this diamond substitute only forms about 2,370 degrees Celsius, so we know that upon impact, at least a small chunk of the surface reached the point. Just take a moment and consider how spectacularly toasty that is 4,298 degrees Fahrenheit. That's half the temperature of the sun. And we only know this because that brilliant burst of heat briefly created a fake diamond, otherwise known as cubic zirconia. It sent back data until the last possible moment, struggling against the atmospheric forces that would soon vaporize the spacecraft into dust. Then it was gone. Cassini's perfectly executed dive last week shuttered one of our few windows to the solar system. But while we mourn our loss and celebrate the amazing additions Cassini has made to our knowledge of the solar system, many people are hard at work on the future of solar system exploration. Hurricanes Harvey and Irma set records with their power and the devastation they left in their wake. Irma has destroyed more than 90% of the structures on some Caribbean islands. All told, Harvey dumped 27 trillion gallons of water over Texas and Louisiana, swelling floodwaters that have been very slow to drain. Harvey has left its stamp on the landscape too. The storm appears to have actually pushed a piece of planet's crust down by more than half an inch. There are a lot of ways that major storms can impact the ecosystem. When a hurricane hits, animals can be swept away or stranded, trees splintered, and coastal land swallowed up. And back to you, Basil.
Thank you, Lina, and thank you, dear viewers, for being with us. Goodbye.